Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to this episode of What the Fuck America. It's your host, Mr. Mikey V, and once again, it's your boy Rob. How you doing, Rob?
What up?
And as always, we got Sarah Love in the house. What up, Sarah?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Good. All right, so today is Broken Homes. That's what it's going to be. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to come from a broken home. We all got a little bit of that in common. We all come from somewhat of a broken home. I think everybody kind of comes from a broken home these days. If you don't, you're weird. Um,
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Even if you're, poor or rich, you can still come from a broken home.
right.
So
So I guess what it really is, I guess what we're trying to question, what defines a broken home, right? Like, I guess it could mean a whole slew of things. When you think of broken home, what do you think? Like, what's the first thing that comes to mind when
first
you
thing
think
I
of
think of, or probably most people think of, is one parent.
one
The
parent?
parents aren't together. Usually stereotype the father most likely not being the one involved in the children's life. So that
That's yeah.
is basically a broken home. A home should consist of a father, a mother, and the children.
That makes
I
sense.
mean,
It's like a little
right?
circle, right? Like a
Yeah, the family.
right, the family circle. And if you're missing someone, and that's, I guess, a break in the chain. I guess when I think of broken home, I what comes to mind to me is almost like maybe abuse, like people that suffer from emotional or physical abuse in the home. I guess that's what I think of when I hear broken. So I guess that's what I mean. Like, I guess the broken home can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different
Yeah,
people, you know. Um,
that all fits into broken home. I mean, exactly what you just said, plus what I just said. That all ties into broken home. I think.
mm,
And the family unit is broken in any way, shape, or form. It's now a broken home.
right.
Yeah, you can have both the mother and the father in there, but what if the father is abusive? So he abuses the wife, he abuses the children.
Hmm.
Um,
Him not being there is not a bad thing, then, right?
it could be in that case,
In
but
that case, but it's different. I guess that's what makes this topic kind of so broad. Like you could go a lot of different ways with that. So like I guess I'll start off by explaining my situation coming from a broken home. Was my dad didn't marry my mom to begin with he had before they had me. So, and my brother. So like that could be considered, already a broken home. He wasn't around for much of the pregnancy or my birth, but he did take us like after we were born. And I started remembering in my earlier years, like 5 to, I would say, 13, he took us for summers and we created some good memories in that time, you know. But coming from that environment where he wasn't there, I can see in hindsight now how much that affected my growth. I feel like I could have been maybe, I'm 10 years, I feel like, behind maybe other people that had that stability with both parents and that are my age. I feel like my physical development is kind of 10 years behind. Like maybe I seem a little bit younger than people my age at 38 would seem, because I kind of went through this like pause in life from that broken home, from my father not being there. So it's like almost like a traumatic event. Does that make sense? Because, people that are involved in traumatic events sometimes tend not to leave the time frame. Like, I mean, if they're like 16 when this traumatic event happens, they almost kind of seem 16 the rest of their life in a way. You know, they seem young in their thoughts and their actions, sometimes immature. And I'm not saying that's where I'm at. Like I'm not, it's not that deep, but like in a way I feel like maybe I'm behind the curve in my age group a little bit because of that. Um, so that's kind of a perspective from my side of a broken home. Not having that stability, to someone there to teach me what I needed to be taught in the times that I needed to be taught, because now I learned those things later on down the road when I should have already known them. You know, does that make sense?
But
Like
you did end up with somebody to take that role for you eventually.
eventually, yes, yes. I did have a stepfather that came in and took care of those things where my own father was absent. But you know, I feel like, but that whole going through that made it like I don't know how to explain it. It's tough to explain because I want to say, I guess the best way I could say it is behind the curve. You know, like other kids that I see that I grew up with, um, that I look at now that were in my graduating class and stuff like that. They are ahead in life a little more than I am, and I feel like maybe that could have been due to the slow development that I had to go through as a youngster because there was only one parent there. Now, if I had both parents there to teach me what I needed to be taught at the times that I needed to be taught, then maybe that might have translated differently in my life and I wouldn't be, you know,
I feel the same way.
so
And
late in learning these things. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Do you feel that?
yeah, I feel the exact same way.
So like your like what was your story, Rob? Like how did your story begin? Because that was kind of just how my story began and where I was at in the learning process and just just already kind of started behind because I didn't have that family unit, that full circle, the
Yeah,
mom,
and
the
I feel
dad, the kid.
that's the reason why I say I feel the same way is because I grew up basically with one parent at a time. My parents split up when I was born, and like both of my parents were just crazy creatures, man. Like my dad was literally a pimp. My mom was basically prostituting at
Like
the
a
time.
pimp,
Yeah, like a pimp. And
like a
my
like a
mom was actually
cigar smoking, feather in the hat,
pimp,
nice suit,
like
pimp.
1980s, 90s pimp until
Yeesh.
the drugs hit him, and then he got all cracked out. But yeah, mom was crazy. She left me an apartment when I was 18 months old, I believe, like all day. I guess she was out there whoring. That's what they said she was doing, selling her body. She
Yeah,
used to prostitute, I guess, to get money. Uh, but
that's tough.
she
That's
left.
tough.
Yeah, she left me in the apartment, and the police, I guess, came and kicked in the door, broke in, or got in somehow, and I guess took me to like a shelter or something until eventually, like, I ended up back with my pops until I was like 8. But then he had got strung out on the drugs and shit by the time I was 8, and left us with his girlfriend for like 3 days, me, my brother, and my sister. And then like somehow April had got a hold of my grandmother, who got a hold of my mother, and we were reunited with my mother for the first time since I was like 18 months old.
Hmm.
Uh, but then it was crazy. As soon as we got back with my mother, which I thought was a good thing, it was going to be a good thing. I ain't seen her in years. You know what I'm saying? I was like, maybe it'll be different from the life that I had to live and witness with Pops, because Pops
Right.
he was a high roller, man. So he had a lot of people in and out. He was selling drugs, in and out of gun battles, police, gambling. Man, it'd be at Christmas, at Christmas time, bro. Like one of his girls had to. We seen the Christmas presents we was about to get him. Like he probably went out and spent like $2,000 or something on some Christmas presents, man.
Wow.
We had shopping bags full of Christmas. We was like, yeah, we
Yeah.
got to have a good Christmas. And he went to jail. I mean, that type of shit, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, they had to bond his ass out. I mean, it was crazy stuff like that. So
That's definitely broken.
yeah,
That's
it was a life that I really didn't want. I seen it, you know, like my father was he was a woman beater, man. So I seen him beat up a lot of females, like his girlfriends and shit. And it was just rough, man. Like it was real, like some gangster pimp thugged out fucking movie type shit. And I didn't really want to live a life like that. So when I did get back with my mother, I thought it was going to be a different life. Everything was going to be crazy or good. You know what I'm saying? And it turned out to be crazy with her because she ended up resenting her kids because of him. Like when she saw me, it reminded me of him. I guess he used to beat her, did all type of shit to her. But
it makes you wonder about some people and their choices. How did that affect you in your life growing up? Because there was a point when you were like kind of your own person, right? Like you ended up being like your own adult. And what'd you do? Like run away from home? Or?
Yeah, I was on my own ever since I was 16. Like I was on the streets at 16. So I was out of both of my parents' house. My father was cracked out by that time, so I couldn't really stay with him. And mother, she basically, my own mother became racist or is racist still to this damn day. You know what I'm saying? Like there was a time when I was 12 years old where I was watching Family Matters and she'd come in and be like, why you watching that nigger show? Like, why you lay down with one? You know what I'm saying? She kicked me out the house, tell me never to come back, and then call the police on me and say I ran away. So they locked me up in these fucking crazy ass psych wards and shit, and then try to dope me up with fucking medicine that I didn't need. I felt like she needed the shit at the time. Yeah, they tried to put me on Ritalin, Prozac, and I refused to take it. She's on all type of fucking medication because she's the crazy one. But it goes deeper than that, man, because like her life story wasn't so great. She was actually traded to the Strodes for a pocket watch when she was 2 years old because her real parents, this is a true story, her real parents, the Clampetts, bro, out in Iowa.
Clampetts.
So my name could have ended up being Bob Earl Clampett.
I'm sorry, brother. I'm sorry. I love you. I don't mean to laugh, but that's funny. Right there,
This is a true story.
Like that, dude. Isn't that the Beverly Hillbilly names?
Yeah.
Clampetts.
Like seriously, the Clampetts.
Okay, so hold on. So
out in Iowa, hold on.
That's
Centerville and Newman, Iowa. Centerville, Iowa.
The Clampetts would be your grandparents from your mother's side.
Yes.
Is that who it is?
Yes.
So your mom's dad.
Yes, out. Real dad, and
your mom's biological dad.
Mother or father.
Name.
I don't know which one. I've never met him. Yeah. His name is Clampett. Yeah.
Okay, so let's back it up real quick. So the Clampetts are your grandparents, right? Your mother's biological parents.
Yes.
Okay. And they traded her to the Strodes, you said.
Yeah, which was my grandmother Strode was an Indian woman, but Bill Strode was a white man. He was a German. He was really mean. Like he used to abuse my mother, and he'd get drunk and beat up my mother and I guess his wife, which was Mrs. Strode.
And these are your mother's adoptive parents.
Yeah, she was traded for the pocket watch, and it was because the Clampetts had one, and they couldn't take on any more kids. Somehow they made a connection, and a pocket watch was involved in the giving of Diana Strode. But Bill got drunk, man, and he was a German, and before he got I don't know how he got paralyzed, but when I had met him, he was already paralyzed and he couldn't talk and he was in a wheelchair. But before then, they said he used to come home and beat him. Like, so she ended up running away when she was like 15 to Omaha from Davenport, Iowa. That's where she met my father at. And my father was on the streets at that time doing this thing, pimping and whatever they did back then, you know, hustling. And she got caught up in the wrong crowd with him. And, you know, he continued to beat her because that's what he did. He beat his women. And from there, she just, I don't know, she became.
So let me ask you this. So your dad's name is Strode, though.
No, my dad's
Oh,
name is
okay.
Lucas. Yeah.
Lucas. Okay. That makes more sense. Okay, because I was wondering, I was like, if your dad's name was Strode, then what the like? Did they trade her to your dad's family?
No,
So your dad just owns her, or what the hell?
No, he's a Lucas.
I mean, you know, he's a pimp.
He's
so-
actually he's based out of Mississippi. A lot of my family on his side is out of Mississippi and Indiana,
Okay.
related to the Jacksons.
Wow.
Yeah,
So, dude, so okay, so your mother had a really tough upbringing. That's wild, man. That's
yeah.
insane.
So
Being
with that,
traded for a
and then,
pocket watch,
yeah,
and then
so all
running
that,
away at 15,
yeah,
and
running
then she
away at
meets your
15,
dad in Omaha.
meets a crazy ass, and you know, Pops is crazy, man. Like this dude was feared in Omaha. His hood name was Hot Sauce. They feared him in Omaha. The police knew about him. He was in a lot of high speed chases, all type of shit, man. Shootouts. He wasn't no joke. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
at the time, like when he was young. So when he had met her, he was like 24. She was like 15 or something, 16, 17. I don't know. But
Wow.
yeah, so she basically didn't run away to get into a good crowd. She started using drugs, cocaine, getting into that street life in Omaha, prostitution.
This was during the 80s
and
or the 70s or
Yeah.
the 80s.
well, she ended up having, when she met him, they were together for 9 years actually, which was kind of amazing to have a 9-year relationship. They ended up having 3 kids. So
Mm.
it's just after they had me, they were done, and shit was crazy
Hmm.
after that because
So that
there was
tells me that
times
she's
where there was times where when we went with her when I was like 8 years old, she had to ship us out to Iowa to keep us safe because she didn't want, my dad was that crazy. He was gonna kill her, and if she stayed in Omaha, you know, he'd find her quick because he knows all the spots and shit. So she had to fucking ship us basically all the way out the middle of Iowa, out to Centerville, Iowa, back where her people is from, and we had to stay out there for like 6 months. I mean, we were shipped around a lot, man, and we had got a Social Security
that's
check.
tough.
Yeah, we had the 3 kids, me, my brother, and my sister. We were getting Social Security checks from my father because my father was disabled. Somehow he got disabled when he used to work in a meat packing plant, and he got disability like for the rest of his life. I don't know how the hell he did that, but he did, because that shit wouldn't happen today. But anyway, so we used to, for real.
Hey man, you got a hustler mentality, dog. That's what it is.
I know. But
Hey.
look, so yeah, he ain't never worked like after I was born or whatever. So he ain't worked a day in his life after that because
Wow.
he got injured somehow, his wrist or whatever. But anyway, the checks we used to get, and that's what it boiled down to. When we was staying with our mother, man, it was like she really only cared about us for the money. You feel me? She was getting those checks, but then she shipped us all off one by one, all out to different places. Like she kept April, she shipped James back to my father and sent me way out to fucking Iowa, in the middle of Iowa.
And you were with family members or like with the
Her
state
people.
or what?
Her
Okay.
people. But then I ended up in the state
Yeah.
custody from out there because, you know, I had been shipped around. I
Right.
had seen everything all my life, and now I'm living
Right.
with people that I really don't know.
You were rebelling.
In an all-white town where there were a lot of racist shit going on, and I'm the only black kid at school. I mean, I was, you
That's
know,
tough,
and I got
man.
in with the crowd, a couple little dudes out there, you know, and I was drinking and doing stupid shit, and
fallen
Yes.
into the same cycle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and ended up, in the state, ended up being locked up in Des Moines, ended up being shipped back to Iowa or Council Bluffs, Iowa. End
Yeah,
up
that's
breaking out
tough.
of there. I end up breaking out of there and running back to Omaha. And at that time I was like 16, so I stayed on the streets. It was either go back to school and try to play football. That's all I really wanted to do in life was play football. But I felt like I had no support from either one of my parents to ever, you know what I'm saying? Like I
That's
just
tough,
had
brother.
no support. And then seeing the life or growing up in the life that my father had lived, it just felt like the streets were the only choice for me. So I chose to be free. And that's when I got into the streets and really getting into some crazy shit,
That's through the 90s too, man. When
Yeah, that.
running the streets was like the thing
I
to
mean,
do.
listen to me though, when the only thing that your father can ever show you when you at 12 years old is how to cook dope,
Mm,
there's a problem.
that's a
You
problem.
know what I'm saying?
That's a problem.
I
That's a
knew how to
problem.
cook dope at 12 years old. I mean, I don't hustle no more, but back in the day, I used to, you know what I'm saying? I had to survive. That was
Right.
the only way I could survive. I'm 16 years old, out on the streets by myself. My pops is locked up. Moms don't give a fuck. I had to get money. You know what I'm saying?
Right. You had to survive.
I had to
Damn,
survive.
man.
So
That's crazy, brother. That's crazy. That's crazy. And a lot of people can connect to that, man. A lot of people can relate to that life because, our systems right now in this country are so broken. You can't trust the foster system. People are just there for the money, kind of like you were saying with your mom, and I don't I want to say through the late 80s and through the 90s, for some reason it seemed like the welfare system was like the save everybody thing. And it because I remember being a part of that system too. A lot different than how you were a part of that system, but I was also a part of that system in a way to where my mom was just seemed like she was broke all the time. She was just broke, but she cared for us and she loved us and she nurtured us the best she could, and she was there for us, and that's a different type of broken. Your broken is like that's like a way fucked up broken, like um and it's just but it's good to see that you were able to break that chain, because now you are a grown adult. You have your home, you have a wife that you've had now for, I mean, you've been married for what, 12 years more?
10 years. We've been together about 17 years. Been married, I think 7 or 8 years of that time.
Well, there
Something
you
like
go.
that.
I mean,
But what it was, man, for me was I lived that life my whole young life. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
And I seen where it was leading people. If I stayed out on the streets, especially in Omaha, you know what I'm saying, and kept living that hood life, that street life, it wasn't gonna get me nowhere but in jail. And I've been to jail, and I don't like fucking, you know what I'm saying? I
right.
didn't like being behind bars and shit. So I chose to get out of that lifestyle. That's why I felt like all the negative and bad energy of my life was back in that area, in Nebraska,
Right.
those streets, those. So I chose to take a trip and get the fuck out. And ever since then, on that trip, I ended up conceiving a child, and that really changed the way I thought about life. I didn't really want my children to have to go through what I went through in life, so I took that out of the picture for them by not,
Damn. And
you know what I'm saying,
that's
not
exactly how
going
you got to do it.
that direction. So
That's
they would
exactly
never have to live and grow up and see the shit that I had to see.
right.
If they choose to see that after they leave the house, then that's on them. But at least, I'm there. I feel like I need to be there to support them because I never had that.
Mhm.
So,
Right. Yeah. See, that was
I don't
my
know. That's just the way I
situation.
felt about it.
My situation was I was just a rebellious teenager without that manly figure to kind of settle me down. You know, like we gave my mom a lot of shit, like, you know, but we were never to the point where
And the
she ever.
female can't raise a man. You know what I'm saying?
Oh
Really.
no. I mean, she can, don't get me wrong, she can. It's just tough. It's very
But
tough. And
yeah,
she
but a
raised my
man,
mom raised us, man. Like there was no doubt about it that my mom raised four
not
boys and
saying
one
they
girl.
can't. Yeah, I'm not saying that they can't do it, but a male needs a father figure in their life
Well, I
to
think
guide
that's
them.
what I
You know,
mean. Like in my
someone they
situation,
can look up to.
yeah. Well, in my situation, it's the absence of that male figure is just kind of leaves it open for me to just go do whatever I want, you know, because when you don't have the male figure there and you have the mother, the single mother trying to provide for her kids, she's going to work and she's, you know, at this point in our lives as a teenager, you know, she's able to leave us home alone with um with the comfort of knowing that we're going to not die in that time that she has to go to work, right? That we're able to take care of ourselves and stay home and do what we're supposed to do and follow the rules and all this stuff, you know. And we're at that age where we could do that. But did we do that? No, we were rebellious because we didn't have the father figure to come home and be like, you know, what were you guys doing? Why were you doing this? You know, and to question us and have us scared of something, you know. Um, that was my situation, and it was my choice to go out into the streets and want to be a part of that culture. Like I was saying earlier, the 90s was the culture, you know, the street culture, you know, like the a lot of gang influence, you know. And then also I was
Hmm.
born in LA, you know, and I came from a mid 90s Los Angeles. So if you know anything about the mid 90s Los Angeles, man, that was, you know, that was hood town, that was gang town. Like it was cool. Like that's what I had to look up to in
You
my
seen White
neighborhood.
Sox and Raiders everywhere.
Bro, it was cholos, man, like low riders. I remember these low
Yeah.
riders sitting across the street from us. You know, they'd pull up and they'd be bouncing and stuff. And I'm like, man, that is cool. Like that is what I want to do.
Shit,
And
LA ain't
then,
been no joke since it's been LA, bro. Like it's always been, you know, the gang shit in LA goes way back. You know, I believe like the 40s, 50s, you know, after the mafia and shit. And I mean, the Bloods are crap. They at least the 60s, I want to say. The Watts riots
oh yeah, dude, way before that, the Zoot Suit riots, the
or the
you remember what
Watts
was
was
it?
Chicago, wasn't it?
Man, no, LA has been like that. It's had that Mexican culture, that Mexican gang culture since like about the 40s when they had the what they called the Zoot Suit riots, you know.
Bro, the movie Colors came out in like what, 86 or some shit?
Mhm.
The movie
And that's
Colors.
see, if when you watch that movie, that's the LA that I remember. That's the LA that I looked up to, you know,
Yeah.
the gangs, man,
Yeah.
like the colors, like that's what it was. And I chose to be a part of that life because my mom could not be there full time to make sure that I wasn't in that life. You know, she didn't have that partner that would ensure that I didn't go that route. So that was my choice as a youngster to do that. So my mother was there as much as she could be. You know, she was there. She had to be the one to provide the money for the house because there was no one else that was going to do it. My dad wasn't paying child support. He wasn't you know, he wasn't in our life like that. And in those days, it's not required by the courts the way it is today. Like now, your wages can get garnished. They can take it right out of your check, as to where in those days it wasn't like that. And actually, Sarah Love could probably speak to part of that being a single mother and trying to raise kids by yourself and what kind of task that is. And
Yeah, Sarah, hop on and tell us your story.
yeah.
I was a single mother for a time. Um, I sort of, come from a long line of divorce, but it wasn't always bad. Like it took me a little while to catch up with everybody, like seeing broken homes as a bad thing because it wasn't for me, really. Like I just ended up with a whole bunch of bonus family that like went back like my mother's
I,
parents are the only ones that didn't divorce. Well, one of very few that didn't divorce.
Mhm.
Pretty much everybody else has. Aunts and uncles, my father's parents divorced.
But so when what, okay, so let's take it back to the, so when did they divorce? When was the earliest time you experienced your parents divorcing? Because you've experienced more than one divorce, correct?
Yes. My dad's parents' divorce happened when he was graduating high school, I think. So that one didn't affect me. Like I didn't go through that divorce.
Hmm.
But from my earliest childhood, I remember having like different sets of grandparents. And those parents, my dad's parents, both remarried.
Hmm.
So I had, my dad's dad and his wife and their two children. And then my dad's mom and her husband, and they didn't have any children together.
Okay. So
Um,
at this time, it doesn't seem for you so broken. Everything
no,
seems still pretty dang normal.
no, not at all.
Okay.
But I mean,
But
the circumstances that surrounded the divorce, the original divorce, that was kind of hairy. But I didn't even find that out until much later in life. I had no idea why they divorced. I just knew that they were.
right.
But it had been that way for so long. By the time I came, well, I mean not too long, but it had been a couple of years, long enough for them both to have gotten remarried before I
Yeah.
came along.
Okay. So
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 it
yeah, so it seemed, so it's, for you it seemed still pretty normal and
pretty
legit.
normal. Yeah.
So but okay, so then now let's fast forward to your your parents, right? Because so your
Mhm.
parents
My
ended up going through a
biological
divorce.
parents both they divorced.
How old
Uh,
were you when they did that, when they divorced?
well, kind of that's not really I can't give you a definitive answer because my dad was in the military.
Right.
Shortly after he got out of the military, he went to college, but he went to college out of state. And so he was away um, a majority of the time because he stayed where he was going to school.
Right. So
Um,
him being away also didn't seem
it
out of the
it
norm
seemed
for you.
yeah, it seemed normal because dad's off at school and he would for like the on his school breaks like around Christmas he would come back for us, me and my younger sister.
Right.
Um, and but it kind of gets a little hairy because
I like how you say it
it
gets a
gets a
little
little
hairy.
it gets a little like tangly,
Okay.
a little tangly.
So you got to explain how.
well,
Let's hear.
untangle it.
Yeah, let's
Untangle.
untangle.
Because there was
Good one, Rob.
untangle it. I've been trying to do that for years. Uh,
Well done.
so there was a little bit of infidelity involved with my
Okay.
parents, and it just so happened, and it sort of just happened this way. Like my fast forward a little bit today, my stepsister.
So you're a test tube baby?
I am not a test tube baby. I'm 100. I'm my parents' firstborn child. I know exactly where I.
I was thought you headed that direction. I'm sorry. I was going to get it out there.
No, the infidelity was after they had 2 children already.
Okay.
So,
And you were one of them, right?
and I was one of them. So I was probably about 5 or 6 when this started. Of course, I didn't know at the time, so I only heard it after the fact. Obviously, years and years later, I found out exactly sort of what happened. But memories kind of fade and things get fuzzy, so people don't always remember accurately. So I don't really know exactly how it went down, but I was around 5 or 6, and the person today who is my stepsister was also my best friend when I was 5 in kindergarten. We went to the same school, and told everybody that we were sisters. Nobody believed us because I was this pudgy little blonde kid and Casey was very lean and a little brown and dark hair and dark eyes, and nobody believed us. Well, fast
So
forward.
you guys aren't actually related, right?
No,
If she literally
she's my
was just
sister.
your friend in
I'm-
school.
yes. But we
Okay.
were like best friends. And when you're 5 and you have a best friend, that's like your entire life, right?
Right. We're
Well,
brothers, we're sisters.
my
Yeah.
dad and her mom started sort of seeing each other. And I
Okay.
don't know how the details pan out for all that. And frankly, I don't care to share them
Okay.
if I did.
Right.
But there was something going on there, right?
Okay.
Well, then that was we were still all in California at the time. Well, after dad got out of the military, we moved away from there because we were living on base, and everybody sort of just like dispersed. My stepmom, the woman that Casey's mom, moved to Arizona, and we stayed. My mother and me and my sister stayed in California, but somewhere else. And dad went off to college in Nevada. And it was
Still
like, okay, so
normal.
now this is how it goes, right?
Okay.
Dad's not
So yeah.
around, he's
So
going to school.
So how long was he gone? How long was your dad gone in Nevada?
Well, he needed to graduate with a degree, so it was years of this, but it was like visitation on his off times. And like he would come for Christmas for his like 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever he got for his Christmas break. He would come to us for Christmas. And then like in the summertime when he wasn't in school, he went to Arizona. And so we would go and visit him in Arizona. My grandma would come. She was also in Arizona. My grandma would come and get us, and we would go down there and we would stay with Casey and her mom and their brother or her brother. And we would stay there in Arizona. And that was my summer vacation. And I would get to stay sometimes with my grandma, and I got to spend some time with them. And we would go over to Casey's house, who's my best friend. And that's what my childhood was. My best friend was my stepsister ultimately.
okay. So
And then
so where's
out about their
where's
actual
your
divorce.
biological mother in all this? Because you haven't in all of this. She hasn't been. Where's she at in this?
She was, for the beginning part of my childhood, she was my constant. She was who I lived with.
Right.
And all the time that I spent with Casey and my dad was all visitation. That was all summer. and
Summer
Christmas.
stuff. Okay.
My mother was my constant. That's who I lived with. That's who, when I went to school and I came home at the end of the day, I came home to my mother. But she was a single mother, regardless of the reason, whether or not she was divorced or separated or dad was off to college, regardless of any business elsewhere. He was off to college. He wasn't there, regardless of the reason he wasn't there.
Right.
And so I was kind of a latchkey kid too. I was left to up to my own devices and responsible for my younger sister at sort of a young age.
I feel like in a way, not saying you did, but in a way you kind of dodged a bullet in
I
a
did.
way with your dad being involved in the military, having a job in the military and actually going to school a lot. Him being away and stuff like that normalized it for you. So like it didn't really seem.
I didn't really feel the shock of divorce.
Or when it was a separation issue or the family was breaking
Right,
up.
because they were already separated, because that's sort of how it panned out.
Right, that was
so
the
nothing in my
dynamic.
life really changed.
So in hindsight, you look back on that and you see where all the wrecks happened in the timeline of your family. And
well, and I felt it. I did growing up. I felt that, mom being a single mom, it was not sunshine and rainbows all the time. And living in California is very expensive.
yeah.
And I don't know if she had assistance or what that assistance was. I know what she did for a living. And
I'm sure you were a welfare baby, just like the rest of us.
I'm sure I was. I mean, living in California, I would have to be.
Single mothers, yeah, man.
I would absolutely have to be. I do remember living in like a roommate situation. Like there was a couple that we shared like an apartment with, I guess, kind of. But I don't know. I really don't know what my mother's financial situation was like. I just know that sometimes there was a struggle.
Right.
And I know she struggled with childcare a lot. which is why at a certain point I was left to, myself to fend for myself and babysit my little sister and make sure the house doesn't burn down.
So
Don't
does
answer the
that,
phone, don't
do you
answer the
feel,
door, and
do you feel like that? So now that you look back on that and you see all this stuff, do you feel that that had any kind of, um, like, I guess you would say, like, did it stunt any kind of growth in your life?
I think that I don't know that it stunted growth per se.
Hmm.
um I think that it more fast forwarded my maturity because I was I
Yeah.
don't want to say forced, but I was expected to be responsible for a young child at a very young age.
So
My sister
you
and
were
I are only
forced to
5.5
grow up
years.
quickly.
Yes.
That's what I feel like. I feel like I was forced to grow up quickly. My sister was forced to grow up quickly because she had to basically take care of us too when we were younger.
Hmm.
So my sister could definitely relate to having to take care. I was the youngest, so I was the one getting taken care
Oh, Lil
No,
Rob,
I was
gotta
never.
go wipe Rob's ass
Yeah, no
now
lie.
because
So,
he
yeah.
done shit his pants and now we gotta clean him up. The baby of the family. No, just kidding.
Nah, but
Nope,
I
I was
learned
the one
quickly,
doing the
man, and
cleaning.
I had to grow up quickly.
Right.
Go ahead.
I was the one doing the cleaning. I was taking care of my younger sister, and then when I spent time in Arizona with my dad and this new family, not new family, they had always been around. It was just in a different capacity, really, and I just didn't. I
Did you ever
never.
notice it change?
I never
Like,
like tried to understand really when I was little.
did you ever wonder why is my best friend living with me now instead
Well,
of like
see, and
going over to her
that's
house?
just it. It was like a visit though, because I lived somewhere else. I lived with my mother.
Right.
So I
Oh
went to
yeah, I
visit,
guess you're right.
and this
Yeah,
is
you
where
said
I
that.
was taken. And
Mhm.
so for a long time when I was like young, I
But I'm
didn't realize
saying,
the difference
did it ever
until I
seem
realized that like in the morning when they would wake up, they would come out of the same room. And then I was like, that seems kind of strange. Like
yeah,
once I sort of like put the pieces together.
right.
But in my upbringing, um children were more to be seen and not heard. And I had a very strict upbringing.
Oh, I could imagine with the military background.
Yes,
Oh
and
yeah.
and that went farther. I mean, that went for generations before him as well. So this is the upbringing that he grew up in, also.
Right.
Except it was a little bit more exaggerated because of the timing difference. The generational gap.
Hmm.
Um, but it was a very strict upbringing, and I still, I mean, he instilled it so well that now in my adult life, I'm still scared of getting in trouble from like anybody, from my parents, my boss, my significant other, my whatever. Like, doesn't matter. I'm still scared of getting in trouble. I'm scared of getting pulled over, even if it results from nothing, even if it's not a
Wow.
big deal. I'm still scared of it.
Wow.
But that was the idea that we grew up with. And so I didn't ask questions because I don't get to know. Like my
Right.
family was very good at keeping secrets and keeping things from children and keeping children out of the loop. And I was very much part of the out of the loop crew. So there was a lot that I did not understand until adulthood because they made it that way. They
Wow.
like very specifically made it.
Yeah, you kind got lucky with that one because I think that situation could have spiraled way out of control for a young person. You could have
Well, and there were
it could
still.
have been, you could have been just as rebellious as Rob over here
Mhm.
because I mean that without having your
I think a
father
lot of it was the fear of
figure.
getting in trouble. I didn't act out because
Well,
if
you knew that
I did,
he was
I
coming
was
back
so sure.
around.
Yes, that
You were
yes.
for sure of that.
Mhm.
Right. See, we didn't have that assurance.
Right. If
Uh,
your fathers were not,
they
you
weren't
didn't
coming
have the
back.
threat of the
They
father.
weren't. There was no. My mom could
Nah,
be
I
like,
already
"Oh,
knew where
I'm
my
gonna
father
call
was
you."
at. He was in jail or he was out there hitting the pipe.
Right.
So it was
And
like,
my mom, if she
man,
was
it
to
got to a
say,
point, bro, like where I had to. I was selling my own pops and uncle dope. I mean, that's how bad it was. I was like, fuck it. If somebody else gonna get the money, I might as well get the money. You know what I'm
well, I
saying?
mean, if
Like
that's what you're
that's
taught,
just
just
yeah.
like she was taught to not ask questions, don't, and fear being in that loop. And now, as a grown woman, she still fears being in that loop because that's now followed her whole life. you
Mhm.
know, and
So
like,
now I'm still, I'm still afraid of getting in trouble. Even today, I'm still afraid of breaking the law. I'm still afraid of going to jail, even if it's like a drunk tank, an overnighter in the drunk tank. Like, I am deathly afraid of that. And I will spend that entire overnighter in
We were
tears
outlaws.
mhm,
We were
because
raised as
I'm scared of
outlaws,
being in trouble. Like, I
as
shit you
wolves.
not, if I ever get arrested, it's fucking over. Like, I will never stop crying.
I look at it
Oh
like
my
this. I've been
God.
arrested a few times, and the way I look at it is like, well, I guess I'm gonna have a couple of days to think about what I did, and that's all it is. Unless you're out there like committing serious crimes, um,
You should be
a night,
right.
yeah, a night in jail is not gonna hurt you. It's not gonna kill you. It's just gonna make you reflect on yourself. It's kind of like going out to the woods by yourself. Like you just go out there and you start to
Yeah,
reflect.
except it's in this like teeny like cement box
Hey,
with
if you
12 other
don't,
people.
all you got to do is keep to yourself and reflect. Start thinking about the relationships you have.
I am not
Start
about
thinking
it.
about
I
the
am
people you've
not.
been hanging around.
No,
All this shit. So, but hey,
not doing it. I'll sit there and
listen,
cry the whole time.
that's see, oh man, but see, like, how much of this did we all endure and then take and learn something of it, right? So now we see Rob. I mean, I keep coming back to you, bro, because like your story is just unbelievable, man. Like, I mean, it's unbelievable what you
To
went
believe
through,
it
and
though,
that
but it is what it was.
you're still here with us today and not locked up.
Oh,
And
there's so much more. I mean, if I got into details of certain things, man, it's just like, what the fuck, you know? It's a what the fuck moment. Definitely,
well,
but
yeah, but I
I don't know.
mean,
I don't
what I'm
know. I
saying
couldn't say
though,
that I would take any of it back because, well, I would some certain things, but I feel like it really made who I am today, and I feel like I through all that I turned out to be something totally different than what anybody would have expected me to be in that situation.
and that's
So
really what I'm trying to focus on is that that you went through this, that you're a testament to what people can go through and still achieve in their life, that you don't have to live in the shadow of your mistakes, and you don't have to live in the shadow of your parents either, that
what well, it's taught me something actually though in life, and what's really important in life, man, is family. You know what I'm saying? Family's the most important
Absolutely.
thing that you can really have, especially in a
And
time like,
see, in
you
my
know, what's
experience, my family just got bigger. Like, I just got more people to do that with. And
right.
it kind of makes me feel bad because
exactly,
like I grew up not thinking
exactly.
that broken homes were a bad thing. I was like, yeah, I got all these other siblings out of it. And then, my dad and my stepmom then had another child together. And my mom and my stepdad had two more children together. So I just got all these siblings.
Right.
And my life was just very, very full. But it was
Like
also
the
very
Brady
busy. It was
Bunch,
also back and forth.
the
It was the
Brady
Brady Bunch
Bunch.
on both
Hmm.
sides, but there was a lot of back and forth. Like my parents were lived across the country from each other, and I got the worst of both worlds weather-wise because I spent my school year and my winter in Michigan, and
Mm.
I spent my summer vacation in Arizona.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm.
And people
It's
wonder
man,
why
both
I'm
of them.
like,
Right.
Michigan,
yeah,
the
That's
it was,
true.
winters up there like
and there. I mean,
Nebraska, they suck.
Whew.
there was
And then
one
you're in the
time, and
hot ass heat in the summertime.
I've been flying unaccompanied for years. I think my first flight by myself, I was like 6 or 7.
Different
Damn,
time,
girl.
man.
It was a whole
Well,
different time.
kids are still flying by themselves now. I mean, that hasn't
They've
changed. But
changed. Well, they've changed a lot about it though, and
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I might have had a little bit to do with some of the changes that they made.
of course.
See, I wouldn't be afraid to fly if I started flying at 6 years old. I
I
Yeah.
was
guarantee you,
never
because at 6 years
afraid to
old, I
fly.
didn't care. I was like, woo! I don't care
Nope,
what the
I
hell I
was
did at
never
6 years old.
afraid of flying. Never
I,
in my life.
I
I've
was
been
doing
flying since I was.
backflips off of
But I
shit,
even
front flips.
Oh,
I flew before I even remember, because when my dad was in the military, he in
Yeah.
1988 he was stationed in South Korea, and me and my mother went too.
How old are you?
I'm 33.
1988. Oh
I was
yeah.
born in 87.
Okay. Yeah.
So I
Damn.
was a year old in Korea.
You don't remember that though, do you?
Not at all. I've seen pictures, and I think I have an album somewhere of the
That's cool.
photos from Korea. Um,
but
but
see,
yeah, I've
so
been
see,
flying
you can
since
see
for my
how
whole life. I've never been afraid of flying.
how all these so you can see how it's a different perspective of broken homes, how it can have on different people. So
Absolutely.
like you look back on it now and see that it was a broken home. It didn't necessarily feel like that
Yes,
growing up.
and the circumstances surrounding the separations in life, and I mean it still continues, because my dad and my stepmom divorced also,
Mm.
and my mother and stepfather have divorced also. And then I divorced. I have an ex-husband too.
She
So
comes from a long line of divorces, bro. Like, oh,
I know,
that's
dude.
scary.
That is scary for somebody.
so it's
Somebody.
but
We ain't gonna say no names. Might let that fool know something.
Yeah.
but I think
No,
it makes me want the stability more, because I know what it's like to not
right.
have it, and I know what it's like to be the kid in that
You're
situation, and
doing
I
you're
have
doing
kids.
what we're doing is we're unbreaking that chain. We're sealing it back up. We're making right what needs to be right, because what was wronged, because we understand now that how we grew up wasn't the way to do it. Obviously,
Mhm.
we grew up
The single
hard.
mom is not the way to go.
No.
But you
Yeah,
Uh
and that's one of
also
the.
don't need to be in toxic relationships so that your kids have two parents,
True.
because
true.
that
True.
was the argument that I had with myself with my ex-husband, because I wanted to separate for a long time before we actually did. But I was afraid, because then I was, I'm going to be a single mom. My kids are going to grow up without two parents in the home. And he actually played a part in that. He put that in my head that I was going to destroy them if I broke up the family. And so I
Mm.
was very much afraid of that. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to,
Well, I think
I
you
was
should
already a
try
young
if you
mother.
can. You guys,
And I did.
every
I tried for a
couple and
while. I
parent should
tried for a
try.
couple of years. I have this flyer on
Try
here.
your hardest. Like
Yeah.
even get counseling just for the child's sake. But if it
But you got
comes
to
But
down
well,
come
to it
to
where you
a
guys can't, but if it comes down to where you guys just you don't love each other, you need to be with somebody else, then you need to separate. I mean, there's nothing more that you can do. And a lot of people they have children before they even know they really want to be with each other. That's a
that's sort of how
major
it happened with
problem.
me. I was still
That's
trying
a
to
big
figure out
problem
if I
of
wanted him, and then
because you got to think a lot of older people are still together. Like a lot of older couples, I notice sometimes are still together. They're in their 70s, 80s, and they're still together because back in their day, in the 40s and 30s or whatever, people were different. So when they got with each other, they normally stuck it out. They got married before they had kids. They had a relationship before they had kids, and then they grew into it, and that way they were able to but nowadays everything's so fast paced, and these kids out here are just out here making babies. I mean, they're just
well,
making babies like crazy. So of course this 16-year-old kid gets this 15-year-old girl pregnant, and he's not going to be there because he's not even a man himself. He's not ready to
Mhm.
take
still
care
a
of
child.
life, and the girl ultimately is the one dealing, or growing or having to take care of the baby by herself, and the kid grows up without a father, and they're automatically in the broken
But
home.
see,
There's no home for them.
I think we've noticed that as a generation, like a certain generation, like I would say our generation comes from that tail end of what broken homes were, because the way you said, Rob, is like almost 100 years ago, the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s. Those were all times where divorce was not a thing,
Mm-mm.
really, or at least it wasn't talked about. It wasn't put out there. If it was,
Well, but I think a lot of it too was that women were not independent.
that's right. So
So
then you
even
got,
if they were being abused or cheated on or whatever, they couldn't leave. Where were they going to go?
well, right. So then it
True.
transitioned into like the 60s and the 70s where we really saw an explosion in the independence of women, even along with the civil rights, all those rights and civil rights and
And
those
with that
movements.
came what? Sex, prostitution, like
Once
just
everybody figured out they had a
people
voice,
start booming
now
into
everybody started talking.
Right.
Now
And
everybody's
so
doing whatever they
now,
want.
yeah. So there now you're talking the 70s and 80s, right? So like that's some of the fucked up decisions of our parents now. And then now you get into the 90s where we're at, where our generation is coming from. And we look back at that and we're like, okay, we don't want that. We could obviously see that the last 30 years of raising children and we can go back and we could look at this and say that's not what we want for our children, right? So now we got to break the chain no matter what it takes, like, and we know the
Exactly.
right ways to do it. Now we kind of got an idea of what to do, because I think also the last 50 years of raising children has also been a learning process for people because of the development of technology, because of where we're headed now as a society. All this stuff plays a role in how we went from then to now, like, like the difference in raising children. Because I mean, even before then, the early 1900s, I mean, kids were expected to fucking be working the fields by 8 years old and shit like that, like.
And now there's people I know whose like 10-year-olds don't even have chores.
well,
And I'm
now
like,
the internet is
are you
raising the
kidding?
children. So
Right. So
yeah,
we got to figure out,
kids
it's always a
kids are
constant,
totally different.
it's a learning process, the way we do
Now
this.
you can still have a full family. Everybody's there. The mother, but the internet can make it
Still
broken as
broken.
well, though.
Still broken.
As
Yeah.
well, because of they're just tuned in. Everybody's tuned into their phones. They're not talking with each other.
Everybody's
They're
living
not
their
communicating.
Yeah,
social life on social media, but it's not with anybody that they're close
that
to. They're closer
exactly.
to internet people
And
than they
that's
are their own
scary, man.
family.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Because
That
now
means
we're
everybody's
really,
growing up in a broken home. Every human is broken. 'Cause
that's
they're not
why
really-
that's why I said at
the
the
family's
beginning of
not
the
really there
episode.
anymore.
That's why I said at the
Communication,
beginning of the episode that it's like, if you don't come from a broken family, you're weird, because this is what it's become now. Like, I mean, it's not like
It's
you can
almost
just
like you
dodge
It's almost
it.
like the
live in
family
Pleasantville.
unit is like phasing out.
Yeah. And that is scary. And
That's scary.
this pandemic actually is kind of, I think, helped a little bit in reminding us what it means to have family, and um to not take for granted the family unit, and how we interact with each other and how we spend time together. Because I mean, you can just you can die. You can literally die tomorrow. And I know and that's always been the case. No matter what, we can die walking out into traffic. We can die in a car
And
wreck.
on the commute to work.
But we've become so caught up in this lifestyle of go 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 that we've forgotten that life is so fragile, and you need to appreciate these moments.
I'm having this problem with the
Pinsky
spy.
fly.
I'm telling you what.
Tell him to get out of your office.
The Pinsky fly strikes again.
So yeah.
Ah,
Anyway,
Dun, 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 dun. Put a flyer on their head and edit it.
so what are your guys', I guess, opinions on how to kind of break these broken chains? You're talking about more communication with your family.
Well, now there's no way to break it, really, man. The society's gone too far. people are gonna do what we've been
So
doing.
we're all hopeless, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, with the technology, definitely, man. I mean, the kids are growing up
But
like
I think
zombies.
it's a choice that you can make. Like I put the lock
The
down
choice is
on electronics and
we go
internet
back. The
in my
choice
house.
is we go back. We get rid of it all.
I
We
don't
go
think
back.
that's necessary.
No, I don't think so
rid of it all
either.
is
I think
necessary.
we
I think
can
being
find a way.
responsible with it.
I think we could find a way. There's a way. I mean, we all found a way with radio when radio first got invented, and then yeah, I'm sure there was young teenagers that were addicted to the radio and would not go out and plow the fields because they were listening to the radio. And then the same thing happened with the TV, and now you have the
True.
TV, right? And we've had to figure out how to get teenagers off of the TV, and now here we are again with the internet. So we're just going to have to figure it out as a society and as parents, and we got to do it together. You know, I think that's how you can kind of at least start to seal that ring, that family unit back together, because
Yeah,
uh
but it's with the phones, man. The phones, that they have everything they need in the palm of their hand, and every child has one down there now. Every kid has a
yeah.
freaking cell phone, and what do you do about that? You can't really control themselves. You got to go put in codes and lock their phone at certain time and stuff. I mean, they're gonna. Can you really do that?
I mean,
Maybe you have to.
if that's what you have to do, man, that's what you have to do. It's
But
just
they
like
want the iPhones. They want the iPhone. So somehow iPhone is gonna have
that's
to.
part of
You're gonna
breaking the
be able to
chain.
have to control your kids,
That's
what they
part of
see,
breaking
what
that.
they
Go ahead.
or I don't know. Just I'm blabbing. Go ahead.
I'm just
I'm
saying
blabbing.
that's part of breaking that chain though. Being a parent is part of being there, right? That means if you have to take those steps to set codes and set alarms. I mean, that's just the way you do it now with technology. Before it was bedtime was at 9. You come in when the street light comes on. That was those same
No
kind
phone.
of
You have to do
ideas.
that. No phone at the table type thing. And when
Oh,
everybody sits down at the
definitely.
table, if you eat, But see, our family don't even. It's so crazy, man. Like I don't remember the last time. Well, besides going out to eat before all the COVID stuff, actually
Mhm.
sitting around the table with the family. We all eat in our rooms or in the living room, or nobody really sits at the table. All through my life, I never really felt that. Like, I never really sat at the table as a family, either when I lived with my mother or my
Mhm.
father. You know what I'm saying? So it's like I'm not accustomed to doing stuff like that, even with my family today, because of
Do you think that might
how I
be
was.
that could be a precursor to your son being in a broken family, or thinking he might be in a broken family for that reason?
Oh yeah, he's definitely. Well, I wouldn't say we're broken, man. We're not perfect though, and we're not.
Nobody is.
We're
Nobody
definitely
is.
we're definitely dysfunctional, but I wouldn't say that my son has came from a broken home.
Right.
No,
I think
because I tried my hardest to make sure that didn't really happen for him. So
no, and you did a great job. I mean, obviously, you've been able to maintain a relationship, a good relationship with your wife. I think that's number one. Where it would begin is to maintain a good relationship with your
and my
partner.
my stepson, which is I've been in his life since he was 4 years old, and his father wasn't really in his life when he was growing up. So
Mm.
I
Have
ultimately
taken that,
became, the stepfather role or whatever.
and that's
And
my
now
role
he's
too.
like 20, he's like 21, and he's still like a son to me. So I made sure that you know the boys definitely had a good father figure and a good mother in their
Guidance.
life too.
That's awesome. That's number one, man, and that's my situation too with my two kids. I call them my kids. I don't even call them my stepkids. They're my kids because they look up to me. They look up to me. They depend on me to be there when their own father isn't there, and that that to me means a lot to me because it it reassures that um, you're doing something right, that you're mending a broken bond. You know what I mean? Like you're doing something like the way you feel for your oldest 21-year-old stepson is like what I feel like for my two kids now, my two step kids now is that you're you're creating a nurturing environment so that they can grow and know how to raise their families in a right way.
Exactly.
So they have
Exactly.
a
So
good blueprint, you know.
and
So,
see, and I chose to stop the pattern because my father came from. I mean, my father's father was abusive to my grandmother,
mhm.
so my father had to grow up with that, and that's the reason why he grew up, beating on
Being the
women
way
and
he,
just
yeah,
being the way he was at that time, and then my mother with her betrayal from her real parents, and then being abused by the people that she was traded to, made her that way as well. Like just, it, I don't know, it did something to
and
her
then
mind,
them
bro.
two
And
finding each other just was
finding
like
each
fuel on
other,
a flame.
exactly. And then they, I, I don't know. I couldn't be like that, man.
Well,
I had
man,
to find my way out of all that. So
that's good, man. And I think, that, like you said, children look up to what they see in front of them. That's kind of why earlier on in our younger lives we went the routes we did because of the things we saw. My yours was more what you saw in front of you. Mine was more the lack of someone being there to kind of keep
yeah,
me in line.
and you have to make the change. That's what I was about to say. You have to
Yeah.
make the change and stop that pattern from generations how they were brought up, because most likely there's always something wrong in the
Mhm.
family, and then that person is brought up a certain way, and then they reflect it on their family because that's the way they were brought up. So you have to
Right.
make that change, and that's what I basically chose to do.
Right.
And
And
so
that's where it's going to start with
my
you.
kids have not seen that in their life. They weren't raised that way. So their children, my grandchildren, and
They're
so
all going to see, they're all going to see the change that you made, not knowing that you
because
changed it, but they're just going to
and I
see
feel
that.
like in the whole family line, I will be the chink in the motherfucking chain. You know what I'm saying? I'm the one
Yeah.
that could have kept that going. Could have kept that fucking shit going from the past generations. You know what I'm saying? I could have easily been the same way. I mean, I'm not perfect, like I said, but I'm definitely not like
Could you
those two
imagine?
people were
Could you
to
imagine
me. You know,
you showing your son how to cook dope right now?
hell no. I mean, what the fuck? Mm-mm.
Mm,
I couldn't. But at that time, I needed it because eventually, ultimately, I was on the streets by myself. So at that time,
it
I
worked.
needed it. So I couldn't take it back in my life, but
Right.
I knew I could change the future or change my,
Right.
to where my sons would never have to even fucking think about that shit. And they
Right.
don't, they know to get a job, to work hard. Our 21-year-old, he
Right.
works harder than, I feel like he works harder than I did when I was his damn age. I
Oh,
was lazy
he
as hell.
does. You
So
know he does.
exactly.
Come
Oh,
on
bro,
now.
dude, he has two jobs. He's a manager, at Little Caesars.
Right.
He's getting it in.
That's
So,
what I.
and his younger brother is going to follow in that footsteps. He's wanting to play football. I'm actually here supporting him. His mother's here supporting him. So hopefully he'll get that chance
That's
one day to
what
actually make
gets.
it and bring my dream back. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because that's what I wanted to do was play football, but I don't have it now. So I can at least give it to them, and hopefully they can from here on out. Maybe I
Right.
don't know. That's the way I guess I kind of
And
think
and
about it.
that's
So
kind of like what I was saying too earlier, that about like they're right where they need to be because of that stability you've given them. 21 years old,
exactly.
he's accomplishing his jobs, he's a manager, he's doing things, and I wasn't that person at 21 years
At
old.
21, hell no,
It
I
took me to
wasn't.
be
I mean,
31 to do that. You know what I mean? So that's what I guess kind of what I
yeah.
was saying about it. For me, it kind of set me back in time, like in the whole timeline of
And
growing
guidance,
up.
man, guidance is a motherfucker, bro. Like if we had guidance and the
It could
proper
have been
guidance,
everything, man. We
when
could
we
have
were
had it
younger,
all.
man, we could be, yeah, it could have been more. You just have to give the children a little bit of guidance,
Right.
good guidance, and turn them loose, man.
And that's what it is. Our
That'd be all right.
our what we're doing right now is going to translate to our kids, and then it's going to translate to our future grandchildren, and then hopefully the chain of having good strong relationships, making things work, seeing love, seeing communication, seeing you
And
know,
that's what we need more of.
having each other's
Because
back. Yeah.
Yeah, that can make the future of this planet bright. You know,
I think it
more
makes
people
everybody
think like that.
happier for sure. Anyway, guys, go ahead and drop a comment. Let us know what you think about today's show. Let us know what you think about broken homes, what it means to you if you come from one. You know, let us know. Let us know what you think, man, and how you feel about it. I feel like we all come from a broken home at this point in life. There's nobody that doesn't come from somewhat of a broken home.
America is a broken home.
We sure are, man. We need to fix this place. We need to fix each other. And I think all it takes is a little more love, a little more communication, and a little more dedication into each other. And we'll get there, you know? So I want to thank you guys for being here. You guys can check us out at our YouTube page at What the Fuck America YouTube. You can also check us out at our Facebook page at What the Fuck America Podcast. And you can also check us out at our Twitter page at What the Fuck America 19 on our Twitter. All right, guys, have a good one. Remember, love each other, hug each other, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye now. Have a good one. The what? Do you not know? I'm like,
So dim.
Come on, slow motherfucker.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Headphones on.
Show you getting later and later. Doing all that shit. What did you say?
Well, don't record this.
Hey,
I'm fucking.
yeah, you're shining. Your head and your shirt match.
You know what, Sarah? Your story would have been much more interesting if you were a test tube baby.